Have you ever felt as though no matter how hard you tried, you just couldn't measure up to someone else's expectations? Imagine stepping into a world where every glance is a judgment and every word is a test, all designed to make you feel small. This is the story of Kate, a woman of quiet strength and unshakable authenticity, who found herself in exactly that position. Her love for Derek, a man trapped between two worlds, brought her into the crosshairs of his formidable mother, Lorene. What followed was a battle of resilience, love, and the pursuit of self-worth. In this deeply moving tale, we'll explore how Kate faced humiliation and manipulation, finding strength in the most unexpected places. It's a story about overcoming prejudice, embracing authenticity, and proving that true love can rise above even the harshest of challenges. Each chapter unfolds a lesson in compassion, courage, and the undeniable power of staying true to oneself. Before we dive into the first chapter, let me ask you, who controls your decisions? Are you living to please others or striving to build a life based on your values? If this resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe to this channel for more inspiring stories like this one, and share a thought with us in the comments below. Let's begin with an affirmation to set the tone. I choose love and authenticity over fear and judgment. Stay tuned as we unravel Kate and Derek's unforgettable journey, starting with an invitation that promised connection but carried hidden intentions. Kate's hands trembled slightly as she held the embossed invitation. The creamy cardstock was adorned with delicate gold filigree, and the elegant handwriting read, "Lorene Welton cordially invites you to an intimate dinner." Her heart fluttered, caught between excitement and dread. Derek, her fiancé, had assured her that this was an important step, a bridge between the modest life she came from and the elite world Lorene had meticulously curated. For Derek, it was a chance to blend the two halves of his life. For Lorene, it was a strategic move, but not one Kate was prepared to understand fully yet. Kate had always known that Lorene disapproved of her. It wasn't outright hostility, but rather the subtle, cutting kind that came through veiled compliments and polite smiles. "Kate, dear, your simplicity is refreshing," Lorene once remarked, her tone dripping with condescension. Derek would dismiss these remarks, assuring Kate that his mother just needed time to warm up to her. "You're everything I've ever wanted," he would say, and Kate wanted so desperately to believe him. But deep down, she knew this dinner wasn't just a family gathering, it was a test. Lorene Welton was a woman who commanded rooms without saying a word. Her presence exuded power, her every movement calculated for maximum effect. She had spent years building an empire, not just through her late husband's fortune, but through her unmatched ability to navigate high society. Her philanthropic ventures made headlines. Her charity galas were the stuff of legend. Yet beneath the polished exterior lay a fiercely controlling matriarch who saw Derek as both her pride and her project. She had grand plans for her only son, and Kate, kind-hearted, down-to-earth Kate, did not fit into them. Derek had met Kate by chance in a small cafe. She wasn't the kind of woman he usually encountered at corporate events or society gatherings. Kate was genuine, a breath of fresh air in his suffocating world of pretense. She worked as a teacher, spending her days shaping young minds and her evenings volunteering at a local shelter. Derek was captivated by her warmth, her laugh, her ability to find joy in the simplest things. Their connection was instant and electric, something he hadn't felt in years of shallow high-society relationships. But while Derek saw her as a partner, Lorene saw her as a threat. The dinner was set to be an elaborate affair, as everything Lorene hosted tended to be. "It's just family," Lorene had said with a practiced smile, but Kate could sense the undertone of a challenge. She was stepping into a world of wealth and influence, a world that didn't easily accept outsiders. Derek was confident. "You'll charm them," he assured her. "Just be yourself." But Kate couldn't shake the feeling that her very self was what Lorene intended to scrutinize the most. Kate prepared for the evening meticulously. Derek suggested she wear something elegant but understated, and Lorene had conveniently offered a suggestion, a simple black dress, tasteful yet modest. "You'll look perfect," Lorene had said, her tone sweet but her eyes sharp. Kate couldn't help but feel that the choice of dress was calculated to make her blend in, to not outshine the more extravagantly adorned guests she would soon face. The evening arrived, and as Kate stepped into Lorene's sprawling estate, her breath caught. The grand dining room was nothing short of opulent. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in a warm golden glow, reflecting off polished marble floors. A long mahogany table was adorned with pristine white linens, fine china, and towering floral arrangements. The air was thick with the scent of roses and expensive perfume, a heady mixture that only heightened Kate's nerves. The guests were already seated, an assembly of polished individuals dressed in designer couture. Kate's modest black dress, though elegant, seemed glaringly out of place among the glittering gowns and tailored suits. As Derek guided her to her seat, Lorene rose to greet her. "Kate, how lovely you look," Lorene said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "I thought the dress would suit you perfectly. So simple, yet timeless." The words stung, but Kate forced a polite smile, unwilling to let Lorene see her falter. The dinner began with an air of civility, but it didn't take long for the true nature of the evening to reveal itself. Conversation flowed easily among the guests, but every now and then, Kate felt the spotlight turn on her. Questions that seemed innocuous carried hidden barbs. "So Kate, Derek tells us you're a teacher," one guest began, swirling his wine glass. "It must be so fulfilling, though I imagine the hours are quite taxing." Another chimed in, "And do you find time for travel? Or perhaps you haven't had much opportunity yet?" Kate answered politely, her voice steady despite the growing tension. She could feel Lorene's eyes on her, watching every move, analyzing every word. The final blow came when a well-dressed man across the table mistook her for a server. "Excuse me, miss," he called, holding out an empty glass. The room fell silent. Every face turned toward Kate. Her cheeks burned with humiliation as she met Lorene's gaze, who sat poised with a faint, triumphant smirk. Kate excused herself to the restroom, her chest tight and her mind racing. Staring at her reflection in the ornate mirror, she fought back tears. She had known this evening would be a challenge, but she hadn't anticipated the cruelty of it. For a moment, she considered leaving, walking out of the mansion and never looking back. But something deep within her stirred a quiet, determined voice that refused to let Lorene win. With a deep breath, Kate straightened her posture and returned to the dining room. The night was far from over, and she resolved to face it with dignity and strength. How will Kate rise above the humiliation and prove her worth to a room full of skeptics? And what will Derek do when he realizes the extent of his mother's manipulation? In the next chapter, we'll delve deeper into the emotional tug-of-war that tests Derek's loyalty and Kate's resolve. Stay tuned. Derek Welton was a man caught in the crossfire of two powerful forces, the woman he loved and the mother he respected, even feared. His life had always been carefully choreographed, a series of moves designed to uphold the image Lorene demanded. From his education at the finest schools to his position at the helm of the family business, every decision seemed less like his own and more like a continuation of his mother's legacy. Yet, meeting Kate had been an unscripted moment, one that shattered his meticulously ordered world. Kate represented everything Lorene's world wasn't. She was grounded, warm, and refreshingly authentic. Derek was drawn to her immediately, their connection untainted by the pretense and expectations that defined his usual social circles. Their first meeting had been in a small cafe on a rainy afternoon, where Kate's laughter had cut through the dreary atmosphere like sunlight breaking through clouds. It was the kind of moment that stayed with Derek, an unguarded snapshot of genuine connection. But as much as Derek adored Kate, he knew his love for her was a rebellion against the life his mother had envisioned for him. Lorene, with her sharp intuition, had sensed this from the beginning. Derek had tried to downplay his relationship at first, hoping to shield Kate from Lorene's critical gaze. But as their bond deepened, it became impossible to keep her a secret. Lorene's reaction was as calculated as it was cold. She didn't yell or overtly object. Instead, she employed a far more insidious tactic: subtle disapproval masked as concern. Derek, Lorene said one evening as they sat in her expansive study, the firelight dancing across the room's dark wood paneling. "Kate seems lovely, but do you think she truly understands the complexities of your life? This world we live in, it's not for everyone." Her tone was laced with the kind of pity that was harder to argue against than outright criticism. Derek knew better than to take the bait. "She understands me, Mother," he replied firmly. "That's all that matters." But Lorene wasn't one to back down easily. Over the weeks leading up to the dinner, she began planting seeds of doubt in Derek's mind. "I just worry about how others might perceive her," she would say. "People in our circle can be judgmental. I wouldn't want her to feel uncomfortable." Derek hated how her words lingered, sowing tiny cracks in his confidence. Lorene had a way of making her concerns seem altruistic, even when they were anything but. Derek found himself torn between two worlds. On one side was Kate, whose love was free of conditions and expectations. She saw Derek not as a name or a title, but as a person, flawed and human. On the other side was Lorene, who had shaped him into the man he was, and whose approval still held an unshakable grip on his psyche. He wanted to believe that he could have both, the unconditional love of Kate and the acceptance of his mother. But the dinner invitation felt like a tipping point, the moment when Derek would be forced to choose. The evening unfolded in slow motion for Derek. He watched as Kate entered the grand dining room, her modest elegance a stark contrast to the extravagance surrounding her. For a moment, he felt a surge of pride. Kate was like a rare gem, her unassuming presence making her all the more radiant. But as the night wore on, Derek's pride was overshadowed by guilt. He saw the way his mother's friends looked at Kate, their polite smiles barely hiding their judgment. He noticed the slight smirk on Lorene's face whenever Kate stumbled into one of her traps. When the guest mistook Kate for a server, Derek's heart sank. The humiliation on Kate's face was unmistakable, and it cut him deeply. He wanted to leap to her defense, to call out the disrespect for what it was. But something held him back, a lifetime of conditioning that told him not to make waves, not to defy his mother. Instead, he sat frozen, his silence louder than any words he could have spoken. Kate's absence from the table after the incident was like a physical void, and Derek felt the weight of it pressing down on him. Lorene, ever the master manipulator, seized the moment. "You see, Derek," she said softly, just loud enough for him to hear. "This is what I mean. She's a sweet girl, but this isn't her world. I'm only trying to protect her and you." Derek's jaw tightened, his hands clenching under the table. Protect her? He knew better. This wasn't about protecting Kate. It was about preserving Lorene's carefully curated image of their family. Her words ignited something within him, a simmering anger that had been building for years. For the first time, Derek began to see his mother's tactics for what they were: not concern, but control. When Kate returned to the table, Derek was struck by the quiet strength in her eyes. She didn't lash out or crumble under the weight of the evening. Instead, she faced it head-on, engaging the guests with a grace that left even Derek's most judgmental relatives momentarily disarmed. Watching her, Derek felt a mix of admiration and shame. Kate was fighting for their love, while he had been too afraid to stand up for her. The dinner concluded, but the battle within Derek raged on. He replayed the evening in his mind, each moment a reminder of his own failure to protect Kate. He realized that his silence had hurt her as much as Lorene's orchestrated humiliation. Derek knew he couldn't continue to straddle the line between his love for Kate and his loyalty to his mother. A choice had to be made. That night, as they walked to the car, Derek turned to Kate, his voice heavy with regret. "Kate, I'm so sorry. I should have done more. I should have stood up for you." Kate, though weary, met his gaze with a quiet resolve. "Derek, this isn't just about tonight. It's about what kind of life we want to build together. I can't do this alone." Her words hit him like a thunderbolt. For years, Derek had been living according to Lorene's expectations, afraid to step out of her shadow. But Kate's strength made him realize that real, enduring love required courage. It was time for him to find his own. How will Derek confront his mother and take a stand for his relationship with Kate? And can love truly triumph over the forces of manipulation and control? In the next chapter, we'll see the turning point that changes everything. Stay tuned. As the dinner approached, Lorene extended what appeared to be a kind gesture and offered to help Kate find the perfect attire for the occasion. It can be overwhelming, choosing something suitable for these events. Lorene had said, her tone honeyed yet faintly patronizing. I'd be happy to provide something from my personal collection. After all, we want you to feel comfortable and confident. Kate hesitated, sensing the hidden barbs beneath Lorene's words. Yet, she reasoned that accepting the offer might serve as an olive branch, a step toward bridging the gap between them. Derek encouraged her, brushing off any concerns. She's just trying to help, he insisted. It's her way of showing acceptance. But Kate couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the gesture than met the eye. When the day arrived, Lorene presented Kate with a black sheath dress, understated yet elegant. It was undeniably beautiful, but something about it felt off. The dress lacked the flamboyance typical of Lorene's style, a fact Kate noticed immediately. Lorene's closets were lined with lavish gowns in rich fabrics and intricate designs. Why then would she choose something so simple? I thought this would suit you perfectly, Lorene said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. It's timeless, don't you think? Kate couldn't argue with the dress's quality, but as she stood in front of the mirror, an unease settled over her. The garment felt more like armor than an outfit, a statement piece designed not to elevate her, but to keep her subdued. Still, she told herself that her character, not her clothing, would define the evening. When Kate entered the dining room, the disparity between her attire and that of the other guests was glaringly obvious. The women were dressed in gowns that shimmered under the crystal chandeliers, each one more extravagant than the last. Their accessories sparkled like stars, and their meticulously styled hair framed faces glowing with the subtle sheen of high-end cosmetics. Kate's dress, elegant in isolation, suddenly felt stark and severe in comparison. The guests' eyes darted to her as she walked in, their polite smiles masking curiosity and perhaps judgment. Lorene greeted her warmly, her voice carrying a practiced sincerity. "You look lovely, Kate," she said, the words light but the undercurrent sharp. "So sophisticated, don't you agree, everyone?" A few heads nodded, but the silence that followed spoke volumes. Derek noticed immediately. He leaned in and whispered, "You look stunning," hoping to reassure her. Kate smiled at him, grateful for his support, but her discomfort lingered. The dress had done exactly what Lorene had intended. It set Kate apart, emphasizing her status as an outsider in this glittering world of privilege. The dinner proceeded, and Kate did her best to engage with the guests. She shared anecdotes about her work with children, her passion for education, and her volunteer efforts. Her words were genuine, her tone warm and inviting. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the feeling that the room was studying her, as though she were a puzzle they couldn't quite solve. Then came the moment that changed everything. A waiter accidentally spilled a glass of red wine near Kate, and in the commotion, a guest mistook her for a member of the staff. "Could you get a cloth for this, miss?" he said, his tone absent-minded and dismissive. The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. Kate's cheeks flushed as she met Lorene's gaze. The faint smirk on Lorene's lips confirmed what Kate had suspected all along. This was no mere accident. Derek froze, his jaw tightening as he registered the insult. Before he could respond, Kate stepped forward, her voice steady despite the heat rising in her chest. "I'm not part of the staff," she said simply, her tone firm yet composed. The guest stammered an apology, clearly embarrassed, but the damage had been done. Kate excused herself and left the room, her composure intact but her heart heavy. In the sanctuary of the powder room, Kate stood before the mirror, taking slow, measured breaths. Tears threatened to spill, but she refused to let them fall. The reflection staring back at her was not the image of defeat she had feared. Instead, she saw a woman who had endured humiliation with grace, a woman who refused to let others define her worth. As she adjusted the dress, Kate realized that it wasn't the garment that made her feel out of place, it was the intent behind it. Lorene's plan had been clear: to diminish Kate, to remind her that she didn't belong in this world. But instead of breaking Kate, the experience ignited something within her. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for the love she shared with Derek, a love that was worth every ounce of resilience she could muster. Kate returned to the table, her head held high. The guests watched her, some with lingering curiosity, others with a newfound respect. She resumed her seat, picking up her fork as though nothing had happened. Her poise disarmed the room, shifting the energy subtly but unmistakably. Even Lorene seemed momentarily caught off guard, her expression flickering between irritation and disbelief. For the remainder of the evening, Kate engaged with the guests on her terms. She asked thoughtful questions, steering conversations toward topics she was passionate about. Slowly but surely, the dynamic began to shift. A few guests leaned in, genuinely interested in what Kate had to say. The whispers that had once carried judgment now carried admiration. By the end of the night, Kate's quiet strength had left an impression that no dress or insult could erase. Derek watched her with a mix of pride and guilt, his love for her growing with every passing moment. Lorene, however, remained silent, her calculated plan crumbling before her eyes. The trap she had set for Kate had backfired, revealing not Kate's shortcomings, but her own pettiness. As the evening drew to a close, Kate felt a surge of determination. She had weathered the storm, but this was only the beginning. The battle for acceptance wasn't just about surviving the dinner. It was about building a future on her terms, with Derek by her side. What happens when Derek finally confronts Lorene about her actions? And how will their relationship change as Kate's strength begins to influence those around her? In the next chapter, we'll witness the turning point that sets the stage for a dramatic confrontation. Stay tuned. The car ride home from Lorene's estate was unusually quiet. Derek drove with one hand on the wheel and the other resting on Kate's, his touch a silent apology for what she had endured. Kate gazed out the window, her thoughts a whirlwind of emotions, embarrassment, anger, and an unexpected surge of resolve. The evening had been an undeniable trial, but it had also illuminated something within her, a core of resilience she hadn't realized she possessed. In the days that followed, Kate replayed the dinner in her mind. Each comment, each glance, and each moment of discomfort came back to her in sharp detail. But rather than dwelling on the humiliation, she found herself focusing on her own reactions. She had stood firm, refusing to let the situation crush her spirit. For years, she had doubted her place in Derek's world, questioning whether she was enough. That night had shown her that the question wasn't whether she was enough, it was whether she would allow others to dictate her worth. Kate decided it was time to stop merely enduring and start shaping her own narrative. She began by seeking small victories, using the tools she had cultivated over a lifetime of connecting with people on a genuine level. She reached out to Derek's cousin Emily, a warm and approachable young woman who had been one of the few people at the dinner to show Kate kindness. Over coffee, Kate shared her vision for a charity event to benefit local schools, an idea rooted in her passion for education. Emily, intrigued by Kate's enthusiasm and sincerity, offered her full support. Together, they began planning an event that would bridge Kate's world with Derek's. As Kate immersed herself in the project, she discovered a newfound confidence. Organizing the charity event required her to step into spaces she had once found intimidating, networking with influential figures, managing logistics, and presenting her ideas to groups of people who had previously dismissed her. Each success, no matter how small, chipped away at the insecurities that Lorene's judgment had planted. Kate was no longer just surviving in Derek's world. She was carving out a place for herself. Meanwhile, Derek watched Kate's transformation with awe and admiration. He had always loved her for her kindness and authenticity, but now he saw a fire in her that he hadn't fully appreciated before. Her determination to rise above the challenges she faced inspired him to confront his own fears. Derek began to question the dynamics that had governed his life for so long: his deference to his mother, his reluctance to challenge the status quo, and his tendency to shield Kate rather than stand alongside her. Derek's awakening wasn't immediate, nor was it easy. He struggled to find the right words to express his growing frustration with Lorene's behavior. Each time he thought about confronting her, memories of her sacrifices for him would surface, pulling him back into a familiar cycle of guilt and obligation. But Kate's resilience gave him the strength to push through his doubts. He realized that protecting Kate didn't mean keeping her away from conflict. It meant standing with her, even if it meant challenging his mother. The turning point came during the family brunch, an informal gathering meant to celebrate Loreen's latest philanthropic achievement. Derek, emboldened by Kate's example, decided it was time to address the unspoken tensions that had been simmering since the dinner. As the conversation turned to social events, Loreen couldn't resist a subtle jab. "It's always interesting to see how people adapt to new environments," she said, her gaze briefly flicking to Kate. "Some rise to the occasion, while others struggle." Derek set down his fork, his movements deliberate. "Mother," he began, his voice calm but firm, "I think we need to talk about the dinner." The table fell silent, all eyes turning to him. Loreen raised an eyebrow, clearly unaccustomed to being challenged in front of others. "What about it?" she asked, her tone measured. Derek met her gaze, unflinching. "You went out of your way to make Kate feel unwelcome. It wasn't just unkind, it was unacceptable." Loreen's expression hardened, but before she could respond, Derek continued. "Kate has shown more grace and strength than anyone I've ever known. If you can't see that, then maybe you don't know me as well as you think." His words hung in the air, their weight palpable. For the first time, Loreen looked genuinely taken aback. The man sitting before her wasn't the compliant son she had shaped, but an independent adult asserting his own values. Kate, who had remained silent up until that point, felt a surge of pride. Derek's words weren't just a defense of her, they were a declaration of his own growth. She reached over and placed a hand on his, a silent acknowledgement of their shared journey. The brunch ended with a tension that couldn't be ignored, but it also marked a shift in the family dynamic. Loreen, though visibly displeased, didn't press the issue further. For the first time, she seemed to recognize that her influence over Derek was no longer absolute. In the weeks that followed, Kate's charity event came to fruition. It was a resounding success, drawing attendees from both her circle and Derek's. The event not only raised significant funds for local schools, but also served as a testament to Kate's ability to navigate and thrive in a world that had initially sought to exclude her. Guests who had once dismissed her now saw her in a new light, their admiration genuine and earned. Loreen attended the event, her presence more subdued than usual. While she didn't openly praise Kate, there was a flicker of acknowledgement in her eyes, a reluctant respect that spoke volumes. Kate didn't need Loreen's approval to validate her journey, but the moment was significant nonetheless. It was a reminder that strength and authenticity could break through even the toughest barriers. Kate and Derek left the event hand in hand, their bond stronger than ever. They had faced challenges that could have easily torn them apart, but instead, those challenges had forged them into a team. Together, they had begun to build a life that honored both their love and their individual strengths. What happens when Loreen's resistance reaches its peak, and she attempts one final move to assert control? Will Derek and Kate's newfound strength be enough to withstand the ultimate test? In the next chapter, the turning point will bring emotions to a boiling point. Stay tuned. For Derek, the days following his confrontation with Loreen were marked by a sense of liberation he hadn't anticipated. Speaking his mind and standing up for Kate had been a revelation, a moment when he finally stepped out of the shadow of his mother's influence. But as freeing as it was, the experience also brought a deep reckoning. Derek began to see clearly the ways Loreen had controlled not only his actions, but his very sense of self. Loreen had always been the center of Derek's world. As a single mother after the sudden passing of Derek's father, she had taken on the roles of both parent and mentor with a fierce determination. She had worked tirelessly to build the family's reputation, using her intelligence and charm to maintain their place in high society. To Derek, her strength had always been something to admire, but admiration had turned into dependency, and dependency into compliance. Only now did he realize how thoroughly his decisions had been shaped by Loreen's expectations. Kate, with her quiet confidence and unwavering authenticity, had opened Derek's eyes to a different way of living. Loving her had taught him the value of vulnerability, of allowing himself to be seen for who he truly was rather than who he was supposed to be. Yet, the path to embracing this newfound perspective was fraught with internal conflict. Derek couldn't deny the guilt that gnawed at him. Lorene wasn't a villain. She was a mother who had poured her entire being into ensuring his success. How could he reconcile his love for Kate with his loyalty to Lorene without betraying one or the other? The answer came to him one evening as he and Kate sat together on the balcony of their apartment. The city lights twinkled in the distance, and the air was filled with the faint hum of traffic. Kate was reading, her features relaxed in the warm glow of a nearby lamp. Derek watched her for a moment, marveling at the sense of peace she brought to his life. He realized then that the solution wasn't about choosing between the two women he loved. It was about redefining the terms of his relationships with both. "I need to talk to her," Derek said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. Kate looked up, her brow furrowing slightly. "Talk to who?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Derek hesitated before replying. "My mother. I need to make her understand that things have to change, not just for us, but for me." Kate nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think she'll listen?" she asked gently. Derek sighed. "I don't know, but I have to try. For too long, I've let her dictate my life because I was afraid of disappointing her. I can't do that anymore." The opportunity came sooner than Derek had expected. Lorene invited him to dinner at her home, a seemingly casual gesture that Derek knew carried an ulterior motive. She wanted to re-establish control, to remind him of the life she had built for him and the expectations that came with it. But Derek was prepared. This time, he would set the terms. The atmosphere in Lorene's dining room was as polished and grand as always, but there was an undercurrent of tension that neither mother nor son could ignore. The meal began with pleasantries, Lorene commenting on the success of Kate's charity event with a carefully measured tone. "It was admirable," she said, her words hovering on the edge of genuine praise. "Though I do wonder if such events truly have a lasting impact." Derek set down his fork, his movements deliberate. "It's a start," he said evenly. "Kate's work is about building connections and creating opportunities. It's something I deeply respect about her." He met Lorene's gaze, his eyes steady. "In fact, it's one of the many reasons I love her." Lorene's expression tightened, though she maintained her composure. "Derek, you know how much I care about you. Everything I've done has been for your benefit. I just want to make sure you're making the right choices." The unspoken implication hung in the air that Kate was not the right choice. Derek took a deep breath, summoning the courage that Kate's example had inspired in him. "Mother, I know you've always wanted the best for me, but the best isn't about status or appearances, it's about happiness. Kate makes me happy. She challenges me to be better, to think for myself. That's what I need in a partner, and that's what I've found in her." Lorene's mask of calm began to crack. "Derek, you don't understand the sacrifices I've made to give you this life. Do you think I would have worked so hard just to see you throw it all away for someone who doesn't belong in our world?" Her voice, usually so controlled, wavered with emotion. Derek leaned forward, his tone firm but not unkind. "This isn't about you, Mother. It's about me and the life I want to build. I'm grateful for everything you've done, but your sacrifices don't give you the right to control my choices. Kate belongs in my world because she's part of my life. And if you can't accept that, then you're the one who's shutting yourself out." The words hung in the air, their weight undeniable. For the first time in his life, Derek had spoken to Lorene not as a deferential son, but as an equal. The realization was as empowering as it was painful. He could see the hurt in Lorene's eyes, the sting of rejection she wasn't accustomed to feeling. But he also saw something else in understanding, however faint, that he was no longer the boy she had molded, but a man carving his own path. The conversation ended without resolution, Lorene retreating into polite silence as they finished the meal. But Derek left the house feeling lighter than he had in years. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Lorene wouldn't change overnight, and their relationship would take time to rebuild. But for the first time, he felt in control of his own life. When Derek returned home, Kate was waiting for him. He recounted the evening in detail, her hand in his the entire time. "I'm proud of you," she said softly when he finished. Derek smiled, pulling her into an embrace. "I couldn't have done it without you," he replied. "You've shown me what it means to stand up for what matters." Their relationship, once fragile under the weight of external pressures, now felt unbreakable. Together, they had faced manipulation, judgment, and doubt. Together, they had emerged stronger. What will Loreen's next move be as she grapples with the shift in her relationship with Derek? Will she find a way to accept Kate, or will her resistance reach a breaking point? In the next chapter, we'll witness a pivotal moment that changes everything. Stay tuned. The air in Loreen's estate was unusually charged as guests filed into the grand dining room for yet another evening of refined conversation and culinary extravagance. This dinner, however, felt different. There was an unspoken tension, a sense that the event was more than just another gathering of society's elite. Loreen had invited Derek and Kate, as well as several influential figures from their circle, under the guise of celebrating a new philanthropic initiative. But for Loreen, the evening was a calculated opportunity to reclaim her influence over her son and, by extension, his future. Kate entered the room with Derek at her side, her hand lightly resting on his arm. She was dressed in a deep emerald gown, simple yet striking, and carried herself with a quiet confidence that immediately caught the attention of the other guests. Gone was the timid woman who had hesitated at the edges of conversation. Kate had grown into someone who understood the value of her voice, and she intended to use it. Loreen, seated at the head of the table, greeted them with her usual poise, though her eyes lingered on Kate with a calculating gaze. "Kate, you look lovely," she said, her tone polite but edged with subtle scrutiny. "Emerald suits you, a bold choice." Kate met her gaze evenly and smiled. "Thank you, Loreen. I've always believed that a little boldness can make all the difference." The response, while cordial, carried an unmistakable subtext. Loreen's lips pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing further. As the dinner unfolded, Kate found herself navigating the conversation with increasing ease. When a guest brought up the challenges of funding community projects, Kate spoke eloquently about her experiences in organizing her charity event. "It's not just about the money," she explained. "It's about building trust within the community and showing people that their voices matter. Real change happens when everyone feels invested." Her words drew nods of approval from several guests, including a prominent philanthropist who remarked, "You've got a sharp mind, Kate. I'd be interested in learning more about your work." The compliment sent a ripple through the room, shifting the tone of the evening in Kate's favor. Even Loreen's closest allies seemed intrigued by Kate's insights, their initial skepticism giving way to genuine interest. But Loreen wasn't ready to cede control. As dessert was served, she leaned forward, her voice cutting through the murmur of conversation. "Kate, it's admirable how passionate you are about your projects, but I wonder, do you ever feel out of your depth in these circles? Navigating this world can be daunting for someone without the right background." The question hung in the air, its intent unmistakable. Loreen wasn't just challenging Kate's abilities, she was questioning her very place at the table. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Kate. Derek's jaw tightened, and he opened his mouth to speak, but Kate gently squeezed his hand, signaling him to let her handle it. She took a deep breath, her composure unshaken. "That's a fair question, Loreen," Kate began, her tone measured. "I've faced moments where I felt out of place, not just here but in many areas of my life. But I've come to realize that feeling out of depth isn't a weakness, it's an opportunity to grow. And with Derek's support, I've learned that belonging isn't about where you come from, it's about the value you bring." The response was delivered with such poise that even Loreen seemed momentarily taken aback. The guests exchanged murmurs of approval, their respect for Kate visibly growing. Derek, beaming with pride, leaned toward Kate and whispered, "That was incredible." Kate's quiet smile in return spoke volumes. The final blow to Loreen's carefully constructed narrative came unexpectedly. One of her longtime acquaintances, an influential businesswoman known for her sharp wit, addressed the room. I think we could all stand to learn from Kate's perspective. It's refreshing to hear someone speak from the heart rather than the script we're all so used to. The comment, though framed as a compliment to Kate, was an implicit critique of the very world Lorene had worked so hard to dominate. For the first time, the power dynamics at the table shifted, not in Lorene's favor. Lorene's attempt to undermine Kate had not only failed, but had also backfired spectacularly. Her guests, many of whom she had expected to align with her, now seemed to rally around Kate. The evening concluded with Kate receiving heartfelt congratulations from several attendees, many expressing their admiration for her resilience and intelligence. Derek, ever the supportive partner, stood by her side, his pride evident in every gesture. As they prepared to leave, Lorene approached Kate, her expression unreadable. "You handled yourself well tonight," she said, her tone devoid of its usual sharpness. It wasn't an admission of defeat, but it wasn't a dismissal either. For Lorene, it was as close to an acknowledgement as Kate could expect. Kate met her gaze and replied simply, "Thank you, Lorene. I believe we're all capable of more than we realize." In the car ride home, Derek turned to Kate, his voice filled with emotion. "You were amazing tonight. I've never been prouder of you or of us." Kate smiled, her hand resting over his. "We've come a long way," she said softly, "and I think this is just the beginning." The dinner had marked a turning point not only for Kate, but for their relationship and their future. Lorene's grip on Derek had loosened, and her attempts to diminish Kate had only strengthened her resolve. Together, Kate and Derek were forging a path defined not by the expectations of others, but by their own shared values and dreams. What happens when Lorene is forced to confront her own insecurities and begins to reevaluate her approach to family and control? Can a new understanding be reached, or will the divide remain? In the next chapter, we'll explore Lorene's transformation and the fragile journey toward reconciliation. Stay tuned. The days following the dinner marked the beginning of a new chapter for Derek and Kate. Chapter defined by their shared determination to live authentically and support one another without compromise. For the first time in years, Derek felt as though he was in control of his life. The grip Lorene had maintained over his decisions was loosening, replaced by a newfound confidence that came from embracing his values and prioritizing his relationship with Kate. Their love had been tested by scrutiny and manipulation, but those challenges had only strengthened their bond. They began to lay the groundwork for a future that reflected their shared ideals, blending Derek's ambitions with Kate's grounded compassion. It wasn't just a partnership in romance, but a collaboration that extended to every aspect of their lives. Derek had spent much of his professional life following the blueprint Lorene had created for him. As the heir to the family business, his role had always been framed as a responsibility, a duty to uphold the legacy his parents had built. But with Kate's support, Derek began to reimagine what his role could be. He started implementing changes within the company, introducing policies that prioritized employee well-being and community engagement values that mirrored the principles Kate held dear. These changes weren't without resistance. Some board members, long accustomed to the status quo, questioned Derek's decisions. But Derek, drawing strength from Kate's unwavering belief in him, held firm. His confidence and clear vision soon won over even the skeptics, proving that success didn't have to come at the expense of ethics or compassion. Kate, meanwhile, found her own voice in their shared journey. Her initial reluctance to step into Derek's world had given way to a quiet determination to make a meaningful impact. She became a key advisor and partner in Derek's philanthropic efforts, using her expertise in education and community work to guide their initiatives. Together, they launched a scholarship program for underprivileged youth, a project that quickly became a cornerstone of their shared legacy. But their path wasn't without challenges. Lorene, though quieter in her disapproval, still struggled to accept the changes unfolding before her. She watched as Derek transformed the family business, and as Kate grew into a respected figure within their community. For a woman who had spent her life maintaining control, the shift was both unsettling and humbling. Lorene's resistance reached a turning point during a family gathering. As Derek spoke about the success of their scholarship program, his enthusiasm evident. Lorene couldn't hold back any longer. "It's admirable, Derek," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "But I wonder if you've considered the long-term implications. These changes could affect the stability of the business." Derek, calm but resolute, met her gaze. "Mother, stability isn't just about profits. It's about trust, about building something that lasts because it's rooted in values that matter. This is the future I want, not just for me, but for the legacy we're creating." Kate, seated beside him, added gently, "And it's not about undoing what's been built. It's about expanding it, making it inclusive of the values we all hold dear." Lorene didn't respond immediately. Her eyes flicked between Derek and Kate, and for a moment, her carefully composed demeanor faltered. She looked at her son, the man he had become, and saw not defiance but strength. And when she looked at Kate, she saw something unexpected. A partner who amplified that strength, who challenged and supported him in equal measure. The weeks that followed were marked by a gradual, cautious thaw in Lorene's relationship with Kate. It wasn't an immediate transformation, nor was it free of setbacks. But Lorene began to see that Kate's presence in Derek's life hadn't diminished him, it had enriched him. She started attending events Kate had organized, observing how her authenticity and intelligence drew people in. Slowly, Lorene's skepticism gave way to a reluctant respect. One evening, as they gathered for a quiet dinner, Lorene surprised everyone with an uncharacteristic moment of vulnerability. "Derek, Kate," she began, her voice softer than usual, "I may not always agree with your choices, but I see the impact you're making. It's clear that you're building something meaningful, and for that, I'm proud." Kate and Derek exchanged a glance, the weight of Lorene's words settling over them. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was a start, a bridge they could build on together. Derek and Kate's journey was far from over, but they had reached a place of balance and mutual respect. Their love had proven its strength in the face of adversity, and their partnership had become a testament to the power of resilience and authenticity. Together, they continued to build a life that honored their values, a life that inspired those around them to embrace the same courage and conviction. What lessons will Lorene take from her journey, and how will her evolving relationship with Derek and Kate shape the future? In the final chapter, we'll reflect on the broader implications of their story and the powerful message it leaves behind. Stay tuned. The morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of Lorene's study, casting a warm glow on the room's dark wood paneling. She sat at her desk, a steaming cup of tea in her hand, lost in thought. Her mind wandered back to the dinner that had shifted the family dynamic and to the many moments since when she had been forced to confront her own biases. It wasn't an easy process for Lorene. For years, she had operated under the belief that her way was the right way, that her meticulous control over Derek's life was an expression of love. But now she saw that her love had come with strings attached, strings that had threatened to strangle the very connection she cherished. Lorene had always prided herself on her ability to read people, to navigate complex social dynamics with ease. Yet Kate had been an enigma. At first glance, she was everything Lorene had deemed unsuitable for her son, humble, unpolished, and unfamiliar with the world of power and privilege. But as she observed Kate more closely, Lorene began to see the qualities that had drawn Derek to her: a quiet strength, a compassionate heart, and an unyielding authenticity that seemed to disarm even the harshest critics. For Lorene, acceptance didn't come all at once. It was a gradual process, marked by moments of clarity and reluctant humility. She began to attend more of the events Derek and Kate organized, not just out of obligation, but out of genuine curiosity. She listened as Kate spoke about her work with the scholarship program, watched as Derek implemented new policies in the family business, and saw firsthand the impact of their combined efforts. Slowly, the pieces began to fall into place. One afternoon, Lorene invited Kate to tea, a gesture that surprised even herself. Kate arrived with her usual warmth, carrying a small bouquet of flowers as a token of appreciation. The two women sat across from each other, the tension that had once defined their interactions noticeably absent. "I wanted to thank you for coming," Lorene began, her voice measured. "And for putting up with me. I know I haven't made things easy." Kate smiled, her expression sincere. "Thank you for inviting me. I know how much you care about Derek, and I've always respected that. I think we both want the same thing for him to be happy." Lorene nodded, her gaze dropping to the tea in her hands. "It's not easy letting go," she admitted. "But I see now that Derek is better for having you in his life. You've brought out a side of him I haven't seen in years. And for that, I am grateful." The conversation marked a turning point in their relationship. It wasn't a sweeping transformation, but rather the first steps toward a mutual understanding. Lorene began to see Kate not as a threat but as an ally, someone who genuinely cared for Derek and shared his vision for a meaningful life. And Kate, in turn, began to see Lorene's actions not as purely manipulative, but as the misguided efforts of a mother struggling to protect what she held most dear. The journey toward reconciliation wasn't without its challenges. Lorene, accustomed to wielding influence, often found herself stepping back to allow Derek and Kate to make their own decisions. It was an uncomfortable adjustment, but one she embraced little by little. For her, it was an exercise in trust, a leap of faith that her son and his partner could chart their own course successfully. One of the most poignant moments came during the first anniversary celebration of the scholarship program. The event was a resounding success, with dozens of students and their families gathered to share their stories of transformation. Derek delivered a heartfelt speech, crediting Kate for her vision and unwavering dedication. As the audience erupted in applause, Lorene felt a lump rise in her throat. She saw in Derek not just the son she had raised, but a man who had grown into his own strength, supported by the woman who had stood by his side. After the event, Lorene approached Kate and Derek, her usual air of authority softened. "I wanted to say how proud I am," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "Of both of you, what you've built here, it's extraordinary." Kate and Derek exchanged a glance, their surprise evident. "Thank you, Mother," Derek said, his tone warm. Kate added, "That means a lot, Lorene, truly." The relationship between Lorene, Derek, and Kate continued to evolve, built on a foundation of hard-earned respect and understanding. While there were still moments of tension, they were no longer defined by opposition, but by the honest effort to bridge their differences. Lorene learned to appreciate Kate for who she was, rather than who she wasn't. And Kate found herself letting go of the hurt that had once clouded her view of Lorene. For Derek, the transformation was nothing short of profound. He had spent so much of his life caught between loyalty and love, struggling to reconcile the two. But now he saw that they weren't mutually exclusive. By standing up for himself and for Kate, he had created a space where both relationships could thrive. Together, the three of them began to forge a new dynamic, one rooted in mutual respect and a shared commitment to the values that had brought them to this point. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was real, and it was enough. What greater lessons can we take from Derek and Kate's journey? How do their experiences reflect the broader challenges of love, acceptance, and personal growth? In the final chapter, we'll explore the lasting impact of their story and the powerful message it leaves behind. Stay tuned. The story of Derek, Kate, and Lorene is not just a tale of family dynamics and societal pressures. It's a mirror reflecting the universal struggles we all face in our pursuit of love, identity, and acceptance. It's a testament to the strength required to overcome the barriers of judgment and the courage needed to stay true to one's values, even when the world seems to stand in opposition. Kate's journey was never about proving herself to Lorene or fitting into Derek's world. It was about finding her inner strength and refusing to compromise her authenticity. She demonstrated that true power lies in staying grounded, even when faced with adversity. Her quiet resilience inspired those around her, including Derek, who discovered his own courage through her example. For Derek, the journey was one of self-discovery. He had lived much of his life under the weight of expectation, his choices shaped by the legacy his mother had crafted. But love, real, unfiltered love, showed him a different path. In choosing Kate, he chose a life of integrity, one where his values aligned with his actions. And in standing up to Lorene, he proved that respect must be earned, not demanded. Loreen's transformation, though less visible, was equally profound. As a woman who had built her life on control and influence, she faced the humbling realization that love cannot be managed or manipulated. Her relationship with Derek and Kate evolved from resistance to reluctant acceptance, and finally, to genuine respect. It was a reminder that even the most deeply ingrained beliefs can be challenged and reshaped by the power of connection and empathy. The story's true strength lies in its broader message, that love is not about perfection, but perseverance. It's about building bridges instead of walls, about choosing understanding over judgment, and about finding strength in vulnerability. Derek and Kate's love was tested by prejudice, manipulation, and societal expectations. Yet it endured because it was rooted in something far deeper than appearances. As we reflect on their journey, we're reminded of the challenges we face in our own lives. Who among us hasn't felt the pressure to conform, to meet expectations that don't align with our true selves? Who hasn't struggled to balance the demands of family, love, and personal growth? Derek and Kate's story inspires us to ask the tough questions. Are we living authentically? Are we standing up for what truly matters? Are we building relationships based on mutual respect and understanding? Their journey also underscores the importance of empathy. Loreen's eventual change was not born out of force, but out of exposure to Kate's unwavering kindness and Derek's determination to live honestly. It's a powerful reminder that empathy, though often underestimated, has the ability to transform even the most resistant hearts. Derek and Kate's life together became a living example of what it means to thrive in the face of adversity. Their work with the scholarship program continued to grow, impacting countless lives and bridging the gap between their worlds. The love they shared extended beyond their relationship, touching everyone they worked with and inspiring a new generation to believe in the power of authenticity and resilience. Loreen, too, found a sense of purpose in their journey. While she never fully abandoned her ways, she learned to channel her influence into supporting causes that aligned with Derek and Kate's vision. The process of letting go, though difficult, brought her a sense of peace she hadn't anticipated. She came to see that her legacy wasn't just about maintaining appearances, but about empowering those she loved to create something meaningful. Their story leaves us with a challenge: to embrace the complexities of love and resilience in our own lives. It invites us to consider how we can navigate the pressures of expectation without losing sight of our values. It reminds us that the greatest victories often come not from grand gestures, but from the quiet strength to persevere. And so, as we close this chapter, let us carry forward the lessons of Derek, Kate, and Loreen. Let us strive to be authentic, to choose love over fear, and to approach life's challenges with courage and compassion. In doing so, we honor not just their journey but our own. How can we apply these lessons to our everyday lives and relationships? In the final segment, we'll provide actionable takeaways and an inspiring call to action to help you embark on your own journey of love and resilience. Don't miss it. Every great story carries within it lessons that transcend its characters, reaching out to touch the lives of those who hear it. Derek and Kate's journey is no exception. At its core, it is not just a story about love, family, or resilience. It is a call to action, a reminder that the challenges we face are not meant to break us, but to shape us into stronger, more authentic versions of ourselves. Kate's path illustrates the power of quiet perseverance. From the moment she stepped into Loreen's world, she was met with skepticism, judgment, and calculated attempts to diminish her worth. Yet, she refused to let those obstacles define her. Instead, she chose to face them with grace, using each trial as an opportunity to reaffirm her sense of self. In doing so, she taught us that true strength is not about overpowering others, but about standing firm in one's truth. Derek's evolution mirrors a struggle many of us know too well: the battle between loyalty and self-identity. Torn between the expectations of a controlling parent and the unconditional love of a partner, he had to confront uncomfortable truths about himself and his relationships. His story shows us that growth often requires courage, the courage to challenge old patterns, to stand up for what truly matters, and to trust in the power of love to guide us toward a better path. And then there is Lorene, whose transformation reminds us that change is always possible, even for those who seem the most resistant. Her journey was one of letting go of control, of fear, and of the rigid beliefs that had once defined her. Through her relationship with Derek and Kate, she discovered a different kind of strength, the strength to embrace vulnerability, to admit fault, and to rebuild connections on a foundation of mutual respect. As we reflect on their journey, several powerful themes emerge. First and foremost is the idea that love, whether romantic, familial, or self-directed, is a force of transformation. It has the power to heal wounds, bridge divides, and inspire us to become the best versions of ourselves. But love is not passive. It requires effort, honesty, and the willingness to confront discomfort in order to grow. Another key lesson is the importance of authenticity. Kate's unwavering commitment to her values is what ultimately won over those who doubted her. Her story challenges us to ask, are we living authentically, or are we bending ourselves to fit the molds others have created for us? The answer to that question can define the course of our lives. Empathy, too, plays a central role in this narrative. It was through empathy that Kate and Derek were able to understand and navigate Lorene's actions. And it was empathy that eventually allowed Lorene to see Kate's true worth. In a world often divided by judgment and misunderstanding, this story reminds us that empathy is one of the most powerful tools we have for building bridges. Beyond the lessons for individuals, Derek and Kate's story offers broader societal insights. It challenges the norms of exclusivity and elitism, showing that true strength comes not from excluding others, but from including them. Their scholarship program, a tangible representation of their shared values, is a testament to the impact that kindness and vision can have when paired with action. Their journey also speaks to the importance of reconciliation, not just within families, but within ourselves. Lorene's struggle to let go of control mirrors the internal battles we all face when we hold too tightly to old ways of thinking. Her eventual acceptance of Kate and Derek's choices reminds us that forgiveness and growth are possible, even in the most strained relationships. As we close this chapter, let us carry forward the lessons of Derek, Kate, and Lorene. Let their journey inspire us to face our own challenges with courage, to nurture our relationships with empathy, and to live our lives with authenticity. Whether you find yourself in Kate's shoes, striving to prove your worth, in Derek's position, torn between loyalty and love, or in Lorene's role, learning to let go and adapt, this story offers a beacon of hope. Their narrative is a reminder that life's greatest rewards come not from avoiding struggle, but from embracing it. It is through the trials we face and the choices we make that we grow into the people we are meant to be. And when we choose love for ourselves, for others, and for what truly matters, we create a legacy that lasts far beyond our own lifetimes. The story ends here, but its lessons live on. How will you apply these teachings to your own life? The journey continues, and in the next step, we'll explore how to carry these powerful insights forward. Stay with us for the final call to action. The story of Derek, Kate, and Lorene reminds us that love and resilience are not just ideals but practices, daily choices to stand firm in our values and nurture the relationships that matter most. Their journey teaches us that true strength lies in authenticity, that love flourishes when nurtured by mutual respect, and that even the most difficult relationships can evolve through empathy and understanding. Now it's your turn to reflect on your own life. Are there areas where you've let fear or judgment hold you back? Are there relationships that could be transformed by choosing courage and compassion? Take a moment to think about how you can apply these lessons to your own story. If this narrative inspired you, don't keep it to yourself, spread the positivity. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that move the heart and spark the soul. Let us know in the comments what resonated most with you. And while you're there, share this affirmation. I embrace love, resilience, and authenticity in every part of my life. Together, we can create a community that uplifts and inspires. Thank you for joining us on this journey. We'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue to explore the profound truths that shape our lives. Until then, stay true to yourself and to those you love.